What's up, you guys? This is Vincanity, and welcome to another episode of Broke Boy Kitchen, the show that shows all you broke boys and broke girls how to make cheap and easy meals. Today, we're gonna learn the brokest of the broke meal ever. This is a meal that costs very little to make and is also very delicious. And I'm talking about rice porridge. Every Asian country has some kind of rice porridge. Growing up, I wasn't the biggest fan of this dish until my wife introduced me to how she makes it and taught me how to make it. And it is basically the Vietnamese style of making rice porridge, and it is killing whatever else I was eating. So right now, I'm gonna teach you guys a quick way to make rice porridge. As far as ingredients, we will need chicken. Now this is a broke boy hack that I learned from my mother-in-law. This is actually called a stew chicken, right? And it is at almost every Asian grocery store for like $1 something, like $2 max, I think. I think this one was $1.50 because it's on the smaller side. $2 for a chicken, less than $2, right? The next thing you need, ginger, onion, garlic, rock sugar, seasoning, fish sauce, mushroom seasoning, salt, whatever you want to use, and of course, rice, a lime, some cilantro, green onions, and you're set. If you guys think about it, this is a really cheap meal. This is less than $10 for a big old pot. You could probably make it with less than that. You know, this thing of rice, this is like a couple cents, right? So putting all this stuff together, it is not that expensive. To start, we gotta clean this chicken. If you ever see people make chicken stock, the easiest and cleanest way is to clean it in some boiling water. So we're gonna take this chicken, right, and you can see it's a real chicken. It even got some feathers on it still. But we're basically using this chicken to make our chicken broth. So we're gonna throw it into the boiling water all together. And we're just gonna let it sit for about 10 minutes so that it basically cleans the chicken, right? If you've ever eaten chicken soup that had like this gamey, dirty taste, it's probably because they didn't clean it, right? So clean your chicken. We're gonna let it sit for like 5 minutes in the boiling water. We're gonna flip it, then take it out. So while that is sitting, we're gonna prep our ginger and our onion, okay? We need to basically roast it a little bit, and the easiest way is just do it on the stove like this. If you got a charcoal grill, that would be pretty cool, but if not, stick it on here, okay? Here we go. I'm gonna turn this on. So if you can see, this ginger is getting charred. This onion doesn't want to cooperate, so I'm gonna just put on another burner. And after about 5 minutes, just flip it. If you got a big pot, that is extra cool, but unfortunately I got a little pot, so you gotta flip it. And if you notice all this like scummy stuff, that's the scummy stuff that you don't want in your soup. All right, and now that it is been in there for about 10 minutes, you could put it longer, but this is a little baby chicken. So we are gonna take it out and we're just gonna clean it off, okay? So beautiful. Here we go. It's gonna go over here. And if you could see, like, some of that scum stuff is still attached to it. So we basically just wanna get it off. So run some water over it and just kind of wipe it off. We want a clean chicken broth. We need a clean chicken. Every crease and crevice, clean the inside. Stick some water in there, rinse it out, top side, let it out, and there you have it, a clean chicken. So now we have to start our broth with our chicken. I am gonna use the infamous Instant Pot. You do not have to use the Instant Pot. Instant Pots do cost money, so if you don't got the money or someone didn't give you this for Christmas, then just use a normal pot, okay? The only benefit of using the Instant Pot is it is a pressure cooker, so it cooks it faster. You can make a really tasty broth with this in about an hour, and with something else that might take you a couple hours to get that same result. Typically when you're making broth like this, you're gonna skim the scum, but because you're sealing it in the Instant Pot, you don't have that option. So you really have to make sure that this chicken is super clean. So let's set up our broth to be successful. Here we go, we have our chicken, all right? I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna grab my charred up ginger. We're gonna go grab 1 single rock sugar. Make sure it's not too big, like this is a decent size. This might be a little bit too big, just because if you put too much rock sugar, then your broth will be too sweet. So get your rock sugar, again, just like a small amount, right? Throw it in there. I'm gonna add my toasted onion. That is not as charred as the other one, but you know, it's cool. Now lastly, we need some water. Now, if you guys have ever used an Instant Pot, don't fill up the water to the max, because what happens is the pressure builds up and it starts like spilling everywhere, and when you release the pressure, you got a hot mess. So now, before I set this chicken broth off to its lovely journey, I like to season it a little bit just to add some like flavor. So I put a little fish sauce and put a little bit of this mushroom seasoning. If you don't have this stuff, just go buy it. If we add the rice right now, what happens is it tends to get a little bit like mushy and gooey, and we don't want that. So right now we're just gonna set this up to make a nice clean chicken broth. And then once it's done, then we're gonna add our rice and make a rice porridge. I usually just do the soup because we're essentially making a soup, and you just press the button, let it sit, come back. Make sure that this is set for sealing, not venting. There's a technique I've been messing with and trying to perfect, and it's basically to kind of give a nice texture to this rice. And if you guys have ever had rice porridge, sometimes the rice splits. I think that's due to a couple things. One is the type of rice, which honestly I think this is not the right type of rice, and also the technique that you cook it with. So I'm gonna clean it. The technique that I'm going to be using is actually just to brown the rice. So I'm going to be doing that by kind of frying it. So I have a pan, put some oil on it, saute some garlic. Basically, we would just want this oil to kind of be infused with the garlic, and also just to kind of like develop the flavor in our garlic. We want to make it nice and golden brown. And now we are almost ready. I don't want to make it too golden brown because it's still got to cook with the rice. So at this point, I'm going to add the rice. And basically mix up the rice with the garlic. So one thing that we're kind of looking for is this like popping sound, right? That's that rice just like kind of puffing up inside. Kind of like popcorn. So we want it to puff up just a little bit so that when you cook it, it kind of gives it a different texture. If you can see the rice, it is nice and toasty and golden brown, like a nice toasted marshmallow. And again, just try to like go a little bit extra. Just like sometimes some of those random little kernels didn't get as much love as the other. So let's go a little bit extra, but not too much where you burn stuff. All right, and our pan is cooled off. We're just gonna let it sizzle. All right, so while that's cooking, I'm gonna work on what's called ginger fish sauce, or mamgung. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but it's basically ginger fish sauce, right? You use ginger, you use garlic, and some peppers. I have this mortar and pestle that I'm gonna be smashing this all up. But this is basically what you could dip your chicken in and just give you some nice added flavor, okay? So I'm gonna start off by throwing this in here. And because ginger is very fibrous, you can see, you really wanna smash it up nicely so it becomes like a paste, okay? You could also cut it up, which would probably be easier, but if you don't got the time, smash it. Throw in like 3 cloves of garlic and smash. Go outside and grab a chili pepper. Here we go. And if you like stuff spicy, grab 2. If you picked it from your garden, make sure you wash it. And if you got it from the store, wash it also. And at this point, this is basically what you're gonna have, like this pepper, garlic, ginger mash. We are then going to grab a spoonful of sugar, maybe 2 spoons. Just kind of play it by ear. This is part of the learning process, how much sugar you want to put in there. And just kind of smash that sugar into the mixture. This is where we kind of learn how to balance the flavor between the sugar and the saltiness. I'm then gonna add just a little bit of lime, squeeze it in there. The lime also helps dissolve the sugar. Just mix it in there. And finally, fish sauce. If this is your first time doing it, do it little by little, because if you put too much of it, then you gotta rebalance with the sugar. So it's all about like learning how to balance the flavor, okay? You also might have to put a little bit more lime. Stick your finger in it. And I think it needs a little bit more sugar, so I'm gonna put a little bit more sugar. Mix it up. And at some point, you're gonna be like, wow, that's delicious. Should look something like this. Right, again, this is like your chicken dipping sauce. And also if you like your rice porridge a little bit more salty and more flavorful, you can just add a spoonful of that into your rice porridge. And just like that, we have chicken broth. Nice and clean and juicy and delicious. And basically right now what I'm gonna do is take out the chicken. I'm gonna leave everything else in there. I'm gonna take out the chicken, I'm gonna pick out the meat, stick the bones back in there, and cook it with the rice. So if you guys notice, I have a new shirt on. It's because I spilled some fish sauce on it and I changed it. So if you also did the same thing, change your shirt before moving on to the next step. Here we are, we have our beautiful rice. And honestly, this is where kind of like a preference comes in. So my preferred way of eating this is more soupy. Some people like to eat it like where it's super thick, and which I guess sometimes it works, but if you guys want to try it the most delicious way, just try it like this, where it's soupy. Now that we have our beautiful broth, if you notice there's still a bunch of stuff in there, I want that stuff to continue to like cook and develop flavor. There's some bones, there's some, you can see that there's a wing in there, ginger, onion, all this stuff. I want this stuff to develop flavor, so I'm gonna pour this in and we're gonna cook it some more. So like I mentioned earlier, you don't need the Instant Pot. You could just do this in a normal pot. But what's actually kind of cool about this Instant Pot, go ahead and close it, put it on sealing, and if you look, there's actually a porridge option. So you're gonna press that, and it's basically, when it's done, you are gonna have rice porridge. All right, you guys, now for the moment we have all been patiently waiting for, the reveal. Here we go, it is done, it's decompressed, and here we have our soup. And I wanna show you guys something. We're gonna check if my little technique actually works. So my whole goal was to get the rice to kind of split, right? So by roasting it, to kind of like weaken that outer shell so it splits, right? So right now it looks like a hot mess. We still have all of our like junk in there. We got bones, we got ginger. But let me just show you the rice so we can see how it turned out. And man, look at that. That is exactly what I was going for. I wanted it to split. You guys can see now that I get the water off. That is the texture that I was looking for. So right now we're gonna clean this up a little bit and get it ready to eat. Now we have to season it. Something that I learned early on is you have to season it at the end, because if you season it early, what happens is it could end up being really salty. A lot of the water evaporates and you're gonna have a really salty soup. So if you want to be like precise, you could actually use spoonfuls like this, just to like test the waters. You don't want to make it too salty. I'm gonna add a little bit more of this mushroom powder, and I'm gonna add some salt, just to kind of like give it a different type of saltiness. Essentially, all these things are your salt, so you don't want to put too much of it, but I like putting a variety of it because it gives it like a little bit more depth of flavor. Alright you guys, so now we're gonna set up our bowl. So if you remember that chicken we set aside, we are now gonna put it into our bowl. So ideally, you kind of want to like break it up a little bit, because you know it's kind of like you're just eating this with a spoon. You're not like picking these out. Of course, you could just leave it whole, depending on how you like it. But personally, I just like breaking it up into like smaller pieces, just like that. Alright you guys, so a couple of details before we eat this. First, pepper. Especially if you're feeling sick, get the pepper in there and it just adds some flavor. Also, this isn't what everybody does, but I just like this, is fried garlic. And then, also for added flavor, fermented soybeans. And again, this is completely up to you. Add it in there just for some added flavor. And lastly, if you remember, ginger fish sauce, right? And again, remember I made it just a little bit under salty. That is so that I could add this ginger fish sauce in there for added flavor. And also, if you want to dip your chicken in this would be a really nice sauce. So add it in there. Especially if you're feeling sick, that ginger will help you feel a little happier. Lastly, this is just an experiment. I've never made this before. This is a Chinese donut. If you guys have never had this with your rice porridge, you're missing out. I like to personally just cut it up, and I was kind of scared because I've never made it and I heard that sometimes it doesn't get fluffy, but yeah, it actually got decently fluffy. This end looks a little sadder, but who knows? So I'm just gonna cut this up. This is just like eating crackers with your soup, right? You put it in, you dip it in, or eating bread with your soup, right? And it's just a nice little thing and it sucks up the broth. If you don't wanna make it, then just go to your local dim sum spot and they usually sell it there. Or any Asian grocery store sells these frozen, and basically you just stick it in a toaster oven and bam, they're just as good as new. Now to test out all of our hard work, okay? We have our rice porridge, we have our chicken in there, we have our first complete bite with a little bit of chicken, rice, and soup. Here we go. If you are ever sick, this is what you need to make for yourself. Or if your friends are sick, make this for them. Or if you just don't got a lot of money right now, make this. It's easy, it doesn't cost a lot of money. This soup, a chicken that costs $1.50. Some rice, a little bowl of rice, some seasoning ingredients. It's not expensive, you make it with love, it tastes good, and it'll feed you for a very cheap price. Let me try this breadstick. So again, watch, you dip it in, let it soak that stuff up, let it soak up the broth, squeeze it a little bit, and you eat it. One quick disclaimer, the cheap chicken does not have a ton of meat on it, right? So if you want more meat, spend a little bit more on extra chicken. You could even buy that $1.50 chicken and then buy some chicken thigh and throw it in there. The added chicken thigh and bones is actually gonna add a lot of flavor to your broth as well. A lot of people also criticize this meat for not being that great, but if you cook it right, it's just as good. So if your first batch or even fifth batch doesn't turn out that good, just keep at it, make minor adjustments, add more flavor, add less flavor, more salt, less salt, all that stuff. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe and I hope you guys learned a lot. Again, just keep in mind, it's more so about the process than getting these exact measurements of ingredients, right? You wanna season it to your taste buds, right? You might like less salty, you like more salty. It's really up to you. So, you know, just kind of fine tune it, tweak it to your liking. And again, I hope you guys are eating well so that you could train hard. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.